no stone unturned in our efforts to bring those responsible to justice.
Stunning acts of gun violence across the GTA. Brazen crimes caught on camera.
Tonight, 10 arrests and more than 200 charges in a series of incidents, including a mass shooting at a Scarborough pub. Good evening. It was a crime that shocked our city. Mass suspects opening fire inside a Scarborough pub.
Today, police announced arrests in that case, sharing details of a string of other crimes involving firearms. And we want to warn you, the video released by police is disturbing. CTV's Stanley Cup joins us live with all the details. Sean.
Well, Michelle and Nathan, there were as many as half a dozen incidents, indiscriminate shooting, where the police say it's somehow tied to the tow truck turf war, with one being tied to the Piper Arms.
It was the night of March 7th. 3 men entered the Piper Arms pub in Scarborough and started firing, one using an automatic weapon. 7 people were shot, 5 more injured. Miraculously, no one was killed. Police releasing video of the shooting today as they announce
The Toronto Police Service has arrested 10 men in connection with a series of violent incidences that occurred across the GTA.
According to police, the Piper Arms shooting is connected to 6 other incidents, mostly from early March, in the investigation called Project Nighthawk, resulting in 10 people arrested, 203 charges laid, 4 guns seized, 10 search warrants executed, and 1 suspect outstanding. The charges include 24 counts of attempted murder.
This kind of brazen violence, this disregard for human life, is completely unacceptable.
Of the incidents, Toronto police released 2 more videos of shootings they believe are connected, including this one from March 4th near Weston and St. Clair Avenue West, where occupants of a stolen car fire at an unsuspecting person at a tow truck yard. 1 man suffered non-life-threatening injuries. And this one, also from March 4th, where suspects in the same stolen car arrive at a gas station in the Lawrence Avenue East and Warden Avenue area, where they opened fire on a man who was washing his truck. The victim sustained non-life-threatening injuries.
They're all tow truck related. It is part of the tow truck turf wars that we're going on, and we're hoping now that those that we arrested will really make a difference in the number of shootings that we're seeing.
2 of the shootings taking place near a tow truck yard, with police saying the only tie to the shooting at the Piper Arms is a suspect named Sheldon Gordon, who police allege was one of the 3 shooters here and at the tow truck yard on March 4th.
Where it is connected is the group of people that we identified as being part of the tow truck shootings have also done the pub shooting.
Police say they're working on the possibility that these shooters were hired by some other organization, but the shooters themselves are not a gang.
There's no kind of organization to them. There's no emblems. There's no colors or code. There's nothing. They're just young males.
Police are alleging that all 3 shooters from the Piper Arms have been arrested, while one suspect, 20-year-old Daquan Joseph of Toronto, remains at large.
One bit of shocking information is that many of these shootings happen within a week of each other. Now, of the 4 firearms that police did manage to confiscate during their investigation, they have traced many of them back to these shootings, but the automatic weapon that you saw in the Piper Arms shooting has not been recovered. Reporting live, I'm Stanley Cup. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. And today's developments come on the heels of another mass shooting just last night. Suspects opening fire on a group of people in North York. 1 man killed, 5 others injured. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live from the scene on Varna Drive. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, community members say there were so many injured, it looked like a war zone. The Toronto Police Association, meanwhile, describes the situation so dire, their members had to use tourniquets. One officer, in fact, driving an ambulance to hospital so paramedics could continue to work on the wounded. You can see emergency workers flanking stretchers, taking one victim after another to waiting ambulances.
Oh my God, I can't even count it. It was so many. So many, because they shoot in here and they shoot in the other side of the building.
6 victims in all rushed to hospital, shot in the area of Flemington and Zachary Roads near Rainey.
We were in our apartment, we just saw hundreds of cop cars flying by.
20 minutes nonstop, cops, ambulances, sirens I've never heard before.
Many of the wounded, who range in age from 17 to 31, were found in an alleyway between a high-rise and Allen Road, although police say they found other victims at secondary scenes.
That was really crazy to me because I don't think we've ever had something as bad as that.
The police response was swift. Uniformed and plainclothes officers, the Guns and Gangs unit, and the emergency task force attending to the wounded, calming the public and hunting for the suspects.
This kind of violence causes a lot of pain and anxiety in our communities.
Police say 3 suspects approached a group of people just after 8:30 last night and opened fire.
The area was targeted, that group of individuals was targeted, but I don't know specifically who in that group was targeted.
A 31-year-old man who was in a wheelchair would die. And according to the Toronto Police Association, others could have met the same fate if not for the extraordinary efforts of emergency workers.
Today was a reminder to our community, to our city and our elected officials that the cost of inaction, the price of it is way too high.
Community advocates once again calling for action, including tighter gun control and legal reforms.
I spoke with a family member of deceased, and right now they're so distraught. You know, it's like they're crying out, enough is enough.
A community rocked by violence and grief.
I'm angry. I've seen a lot of death. This is a lot of death. I'm tired of seeing people die.
You can do that.
Police say a number of weapons were used, although they haven't recovered any of the guns at this point. The victims, or rather the suspects, were last seen wearing dark clothing and face masks. They are described as 3 males. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. From gun violence to the escalating trade war, another major story tonight. President Trump has doubled tariffs on steel and aluminum.
A move drawing fire from all levels of government, sparking fears it will devastate the industries and impact both Canadians and Americans alike across many sectors. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us with what the Premier and the Prime Minister had to say today. Siobhan.
Well, those leaders are using words like disappointing, unjustified, even illegal to describe those tariffs. Canada's response is still being hammered out, but the Premier has some ideas. It's a blow the Premier had hoped to avoid, but with 50% tariffs on all steel and aluminum going into the U.S., Doug Ford is emphatic.
We can't sit back and let President Trump steamroll us. Try to shut down our steel industry. Urging the federal government to meet the Americans tit for tat. We need to slap another 25% tariffs on the steel that's coming into Ontario and Canada as a whole. On Parliament Hill, the Prime Minister says, as far as Canada is concerned,
the latest tariffs on steel and aluminum are unjustified, they're illegal.
But Marc Carney isn't announcing any new retaliatory measures, at least not yet.
We will take some time, not much, some time, because we are in intensive discussions right now with the Americans on the trading relationship. Those discussions are progressing. Until a deal is solidified, Premier Ford is back on American TV explaining the damage steel and aluminum tariffs can do. It's a $4 billion tax on American products that have steel. In March, President Donald Trump backed off doubling these same tariffs on Canada. That was in response to Ford slapping a surcharge on electricity Ontario sends to U.S. states.
It would have been a very bad thing if he did, and he's not going to do that, so I respect that.
Ford says reviving the surcharge remains an option on the table.
Unfortunately, they broke a verbal agreement.
In the meantime, a potential lifeline for Ontario's steel industry, directing his government.
The $30 billion that we're importing to onshore as much as we can.
It's not clear yet how Ottawa might join that effort.
The steel and aluminum industry is key to Canada's prosperity, and we're going to be there fighting and protecting our workers.
There had been some hope that Canada and the U.S. might be able to come to some sort of agreement on trade in time for the G7 summit that takes place in Alberta later this month. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. For years, the steel industry has been considered the heartbeat of Hamilton.
So you can just imagine the doubling of tariffs is being met with a great deal of concern from people who live there. CTV's Raheem Ladani explains.
In Hamilton, Steeltown isn't just a nickname. It's a nod to the metal that everyone in the city is connected to.
I'm a refinish technician. When it comes to waiting and getting parts for all these cars, the time has almost doubled. So now when you bring your car into the body shop and you want your car back in a week, now it takes 2 weeks.
Workers say wait times are up, prices have soared, and their business is down. all as a direct result of tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump on Canadian steel and aluminum. And the ripple effect to other industries is significant.
All the steel's having problems, all the waste coming out, it's not going to be coming out as much. And that's mainly our business, is the waste, right? So, just outrageous.
Canada is the largest steel supplier to the United States, while the two steel manufacturers in Hamilton employ nearly 6,000 people in the city. The industry has already been treading water after Trump imposed 25% tariffs on these metals in March. With the number now doubled to 50%, the mayor says the economic impact could be catastrophic without immediate government support.
We need firm dates. We need to know how long we have to hold on before we see some relief coming.
Meanwhile, the tariff war is also impacting Canadian companies that typically bring in their parts through the U.S.
If it comes in through the States, there's a heavy tariff on it. So now he's got it coming in through Montreal, and about 4 or 5 of the other big suppliers are with him.
Even amidst the uncertain trading future between the U.S. and its northern neighbor, there is still a sense of confidence amongst Hamiltonians.
He's a bully, and you don't back down from a bully, that's all. And you know what? We've been through a lot. Nobody's been through a pandemic before in this lifetime, but we did it. I'm sure this generation hasn't been through a world war, but we did it, and we will get through this, no problem.
A strong belief they'll be able to hammer through. Raheem Ladani, CTV News.
Still ahead, the demand for more power. The city announces plans to build a third transmission line to meet Toronto's increasing energy needs down the line.
A live look outside now on this Wednesday evening where the heat is making headlines. It hasn't been this hot in a while, and with plenty of sunshine along with it, it sure has been a day to stay hydrated and use the sunscreen. And in this live shot, you can see that haze we've been talking about. Lindsay Morrison is here with the current conditions. Lindsay, the heat is on, but it's not going to last.
It's not, Michelle. And just to add on top of everything you talked about, we are also tracking a few thunderstorms. Severe thunderstorm warnings just now coming to an end for the Newmarket area, but we've got active weather pushing into King City and Aurora. The line has weakened over the last little bit here, so that's good news. But watch for a few showers early this evening in Toronto. It is still 29 degrees in Toronto. It is 31 degrees still this hour in St. Catharines. Notice that it is cooler, 18 this hour at the Toronto Islands. Winds, it is windy out there. Winds coming out of the southwest gusting close to 70 kilometers per hour, and it's going to be active through the overnight hours tonight. We'll take you through the forecast coming up. For now, Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Now to developing news out of Queen's Park, where a controversial mining bill has passed third reading despite protests by the opposition and members of First Nations.
This week, the Ford government voted to shut down debate on Bill 5, and the Progressive Conservatives used their majority to get it over the finish line this afternoon.
The ayes being 71, the nays being 44, I declare the motion carried.
A number of protesters were removed from the public gallery as the vote unfolded. Bill 5 gives the government power to suspend provincial and municipal laws in so-called special economic zones to speed up key infrastructure projects. Some First Nations say their rights and concerns have been ignored throughout the process.
We're going to protect the North. We're going to protect our resources. We're going to make sure that our kids have clean water and that they can live off the land. That's what this is about.
Some First Nations have called for blockades of roads, railways and mines. Premier Ford said doing so wouldn't be very wise. The province has said it's committed to performing its duty to consult. Bill 5 is expected to receive royal assent before the legislature rises for summer break this week.
We have some sad news to report. Marc Garneau has died. His family says the former MP, cabinet minister and astronaut faced his final days with the same strength, clarity, and grace that defined his life. He passed away peacefully, surrounded by his family. They want to express their heartfelt thanks for the outpouring of support, concern, and kind words over the past few days, and are especially grateful to the medical team who provided dedicated and compassionate care during his short illness. They're asking for privacy as they grieve this profound loss and take time to heal. We turn to efforts to keep the power flowing in Toronto.
Today, the city and province announcing plans for a new hydro transmission line. CTV's Natalie Johnson reports.
As the towers climb and the skyline sprawls, the energy that powers it all
must keep pace.
Toronto is Canada's economic engine, and every engine needs power.
The province today announcing plans for a third transmission line that will bring energy into Toronto from all over Ontario to meet the city's growing needs.
A third transmission line will do more than just keep lights on for the people of Toronto and Canada. It will improve the grid reliability. It ensures we can power new homes and businesses in transit.
Toronto's electricity demand is expected to roughly double by 2050, with the greatest need in the downtown core. The two existing supply paths will hit capacity well before that.
There are three options on the table for the new transmission line. An overland route from Pickering to Leaside, which would use an existing transmission corridor. An overland route from Pickering to the Portlands, which could also go underground. And an underwater cable from Darlington or Pickering to the Portlands. Officials insisting all three options would minimize land impacts and that doing nothing is not an option.
Without the additional supply into the city, we just don't have the power to continue to grow. We don't have the power to meet the city's ambitious climate goals, and we don't have the power to continue to build the homes and attract the businesses that the city asks and needs.
A project that will give the city the power to continue to grow. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
York Regional Police are sharing details of what they're calling a significant haul of guns and drugs.
Nearly 24 people facing hundreds of charges in an investigation called Project Chatter. CTV's Beth McDonnell reports.
I can tell you this is a significant seizure.
Bags of fentanyl with a street value of $7 million and 32 illegal guns seized are the big results from Project Chatter, a York Regional Police investigation.
These are all lethal doses that are on the table here.
It's enough fentanyl for 700,000 potential lethal doses, police say, sharing that last year in York Region alone, there were 89 overdoses, 29 of them fatal.
Project Chatter uncovered a network that was highly organized and well-equipped. Our investigators identified key suppliers, distribution hubs, and locations believed to be cooking or cutting fentanyl for street-level sale.
Project Chatter began in October of last year and spanned 7 months. Officers say the allegations stem primarily from Richmond Hill, but are spread across the GTA. In May, more than 200 officers from various forces executed 15 search warrants at residences stretching from Richmond Hill to Niagara Falls. 23 people face more than 300 drug trafficking, firearm possession, and organized crime charges.
They're normal family people. They're just trying to blend in so that they don't get observed by law enforcement.
The work dismantling the organization, police say, along with additional seizures of Rolex watches and cash. And of the 24 firearms traced so far, 23 are from the U.S.
There is no excuse for anyone to have a gun in this country illegally. There's only one excuse that they're going to have, and that's to commit more crime.
Police say fentanyl and opioid use has fueled violence. The seizures aim to make communities safe. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
Here in Toronto, police were investigating after shots were fired at a restaurant on Queen Street overnight. The call came in just before 4 in the morning about a shooting near Dover Court in Lisgar. Police say when officers arrived, they found a man with a cut from broken glass. There's no suspect information at this time as the investigation gets underway.
The OPP are investigating a deadly crash this morning on the 401 in Oshawa. Just before 6 a.m., police say a motorcycle collided with the rear of a tractor trailer near Harmony Road. The 25-year-old rider from Pickering was rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The eastbound lanes were closed for several hours into the early afternoon. Police are asking witnesses or anyone with information to come forward.
The Bank of Canada is keeping its trend-setting interest rate steady at 2.75%.
The central bank arrived at that decision primarily because of uncertainty over U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs and a softening of the Canadian economy. CTV senior political correspondent Mike Lecoutel reports.
Canada's central banker Tiff says they're being less forward-looking than usual, and it's all because of the unpredictable trade war.
Uncertainty remains high.
With perhaps the understatement of the year, the governor of the Bank of Canada had that explanation for why interest rates are staying at 2.75%. Citing the doubling of the U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum, Tiff said the conflict is being felt in the economy.
It's difficult for businesses that are faced with new rules of the game every week. I'm much worried about households who are worrying about the possibility that they'll lose their job.
The economy hasn't softened, but the bank says it wasn't sharply weaker as the U.S. continued to import goods from Canada. But some economists say there is evidence of the impacts.
We are certainly starting to see interest rates bite for consumers, where we're seeing increases in the number of consumers unable to make their payments, skipping payments on credit cards and car loans.
The bank says the removal of the federal consumer carbon tax helped bring down inflation by 0.6 of a percentage point. However, economists say it's tough to predict if there will be another interest rate cut this year until the trade war stops.
If we're able to come to a trade agreement relatively quickly, then a lot of this could go away and the Canadian economy could do very well.
Macklem says they are considering the other scenario.
There could be a need for a further reduction in the interest rate if the tariffs continue, if that creates more weakness in the Canadian economy.
Now, the central bank's next rate decision and monetary policy announcement are scheduled for the end of July, and both decisions will be affected by whatever comes out of the White House. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Ottawa.
The new Liberal government is set to face a confidence vote in the House of Commons, perhaps within the hour. The vote is on the throne speech. Now, if the minority government loses, it's defeated, which could lead to a snap election. The NDP says it will vote against the throne speech, so the Conservatives or the Bloc Québécois will need to support it. It's not clear how either party will vote. On Monday, opposition members successfully amended the reply to the speech to call on the government to table an economic update before Parliament breaks for the summer.
Canada Post said today it is ready to resume negotiations in its labor dispute with the union, representing 55,000 workers. Earlier in the day, the federal government urged both sides to restart talks. Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu posted this on X, saying, quote, "Today I asked Canada Post and CUPW to return to the bargaining table with federal mediators to do two things: to seek to negotiate terms for an arbitration process to conclude this round of bargaining, and to have the union table its response to Canada Post's latest global offers." On Friday, the Crown Corporation asked Hajdu to force a vote on those offers. The union requested binding arbitration, which the employer rejected. The union adopted a legal strike position starting May 23rd, but opted to ban 55,000 members from working overtime while negotiations continued.
Muslims from around the world are gathering in Saudi Arabia for the Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Today, pilgrims began religious rituals and acts of worship that originated more than 1,400 years ago. There are currently more than 1.4 million people in the city of Mecca for this year's pilgrimage. The Hajj is a once-in-a-lifetime obligation for every Muslim who can afford it and is physically able to do it. Muslim-majority countries like Indonesia and Malaysia have decades-long waiting lists for the Hajj. Indonesia has nearly 5.5 million people waiting their turn, with the number increasing each year.
Also tonight, the flames may be far away, but the wildfire smoke carries its own dangers. We examine the hidden health hazards as haze blankets the region.
I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, are you doing some spring cleaning? It may be a chance to make some money hosting a garage sale. If you like to check out yard sales, you have to be careful what you buy. You may find a deal, but there are some products you shouldn't get secondhand. I'll have my reports. That's just ahead.
It was a scorcher today in southern Ontario. Our first 30-degree day at Toronto Pearson, 31 in fact. Close to record territory just by a couple of decimal points. In fact, Pembroke, the big winner, 31.1 degrees. Look at the change for tomorrow. Forecast daytime high, only 20. That's it. And yes, we've got some active weather on the way. We're going to take you through the weekend forecast coming up, and stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
With the warm weather finally upon us, you may start seeing signs popping up in your neighborhood for garage sales.
It could be a way for you to make a few dollars selling things you don't need, or you could get lucky and find a deal. But bargain hunters beware. Here's Pat Foran with a consumer alert.
One person's junk may be another person's treasure, but you do have to be careful buying certain items at garage sales. There are some things you should never buy used without knowing their history or if they've been involved in safety recalls. With nice weather also comes yard sales. You'll find old records and books, kids' clothing, and antiques. But Consumer Reports says not everything is as good a deal as it seems. Take battery-powered lawn tools. The product should come with the charger, extra batteries, and the manual if the seller still has it.
The most important thing you want to know is the age of the tool.
And if you have kids, you know garage sales can be a great way to get what you need without breaking the bank. But you still have to be careful the gear you get for your baby is safe.
While it's illegal to sell recalled products, including on the secondhand market, people might not be aware of the law or may not even realize that the product they're selling has been recalled.
And it's not uncommon to find recalled infant sleepers and other products. Cribs with drop-down sides are another dangerous item to never buy. These have been linked to dozens of infant deaths and were banned in 2011. Even parents planning on using newer cribs still need to be careful.
Sometimes a used crib may be passed on to you disassembled. You won't know if it's missing any hardware unless you have the assembly instructions.
Used car seats are also problematic.
Buying used car seats is not a good idea because you won't reliably know a lot about the seat.
The same goes for used bike helmets.
You should never reuse a helmet that's been in a crash because that could impact the performance of the helmet in case of another crash. Even if there's no sign of damage, you still don't know its history. It's not worth it.
And be careful about buying old used toys. The safest battery compartments have a screw. According to the City of Toronto's website, a permit or license is not required to have a garage sale. Homeowners can have 2 of them a year, and a sale can last 2 consecutive days. However, when it's over, all signage advertising the sale must be removed. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, to the forecast. What I love about the weather this time of year is that it's nice and warm in the evenings, and hopefully it holds up.
Oh, those love it. Yeah, it sounds like our stretch of heat and sun, though, it is coming to an end, and that's happening tonight. What do we need to know?
It's happening as we speak. In fact, Nathan, the temperature is falling at Pearson Airport as a few showers make their way through. Thunderstorms that were firing up across the province have weakened, so that's good news. Severe thunderstorm warnings have come to an end, but yes, a change is on the way. Here's a look at what it looked like earlier this afternoon at Lakeview Park in Oshawa. A beautiful day for those who have been waiting for summer-like heat and humidity. Yes, it was a little hazy too. A bit of a different weather story for tomorrow, which we will talk about in a moment. I do want to touch upon that haze. It wasn't as bad today as it was yesterday. We did enjoy a bit more of a blue sky, but look at these widespread air quality warnings and special statements that are in place from British Columbia all the way through to the province of Quebec. And that smoke, as we know, has been drifting south of the border all the way to Florida and across the Atlantic all the way to Europe. This is going to be a story that we watch through a good portion of the summer, not just for the week ahead. But it is worth mentioning that our air quality health index will be a 3 tomorrow in Toronto, which is a nice improvement. You can breathe a little easier knowing that. We have just dropped from 30 degrees in Toronto to 23 degrees in just the last little while here. Overnight tonight, our temperature falling to about 17. That is still warmer than normal. But look at these daytime highs tomorrow. Some communities are going to struggle to make it out of the teens. That's after a 30-degree day in many of these areas today. 16 in Burlington, 21 in Aurora, forecasting 20 degrees in Uxbridge. You should be able to enjoy a little more sun in Huntsville tomorrow compared to many different parts of the south. So here's that active weather. So we've had thunderstorms, again, mainly north of Toronto. A few showers just making their way into Brampton, Mississauga, and Etobicoke right now. This cold front bringing us the active weather through the night tonight and into tomorrow. Our winds will change from southerly winds to northerly winds, and that's going to cool us down. There's around midnight, waking up tomorrow morning, showers and thunderstorms a possibility. We're going to clear out quite nicely for your Thursday late afternoon and early evening. And then it's a mix of sun and cloud into Friday and into the weekend. Here is your 7-day forecast. Look at these highs, 23 degrees. That's seasonal for Friday, Saturday, and about 24 for Sunday. So not bad. Again, mix of sun and cloud. It's pretty pleasant overall. Next round of wet weather looks to arrive through the early part of next week on Monday. That's the weather for now. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Cyclists from across the city hopped on their bikes this morning for Toronto's annual Bike to Work Day. Participants gathered at meeting points across the city for the group commute to City Hall. Mayor Olivia Chow and other members of City Council took part. There are other cycling events scheduled throughout June, including a day of special free access to Bike Share Toronto, Bikes on the 14th, in partnership with Tangerine. Also tonight, the ghost with the most appears in Toronto. We go behind the curtain at the out-of-this-world musical Beetlejuice, coming up.
The Lung Health Foundation is warning Canadians about the dangerous effects of wildfire smoke.
It's even been named as a factor in the air quality warnings in the U.S. We get more from our health reporter, Pauline Chan.
The flames from Manitoba's wildfires are frightening to see, but it's not just the fire that can threaten lives.
We've definitely seen an increase in worsening of lung diseases and their symptoms in their lung disease, and we've also seen an increase in emergency room visits and hospitalizations.
Respiratory therapist Jessica Sitt says anyone with a lung condition like asthma or COPD is especially vulnerable.
With those specific lung diseases, any sort of airway inflammation can really exacerbate their symptoms and make their disease much worse. And a really bad exacerbation can send you directly to the hospital and can be fatal.
The Lung Health Foundation says if you're in that vulnerable group, make sure you check in regularly with your doctor and stick to your asthma or COPD action plan.
And if you are prescribed something like a puffer, that you're taking it regularly so that in the event you're exposed to any of these to wildfire or this particulate matter, your lungs are going to be in much better shaped to deal with this wildfire smoke.
You know, few are seeing the flames, but millions are smelling the smoke. Right across the country, methane and carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide and some toxic chemicals like benzene and arsenic.
Sitt says the wildfires are in Manitoba now, but Ontarians have seen them as close as Muskoka, and it's best to be prepared. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
The Toronto International Film Festival is still several months away, but organizers announced this year's opening night film. TIFF says it'll kick off with the world premiere of John Candy, I Like Me, at Roy Thomson Hall. The documentary is directed by Colin Hanks and produced by Ryan Reynolds, and is billed as a heartfelt tribute to the Canadian comedy legend. TIFF CEO Cameron Bailey shared the news, saying, "Comedy fans all over the world grew up on John Candy's humor. We love that John's global career started in Toronto, and we can't wait to share John Candy, I Like Me, with everyone at this year's opening night gala premiere." TIFF runs September 4th through the 14th. Based on a 1980s cult classic, Beetlejuice, the musical is now on stage in Toronto.
And our Andrea Case got a behind-the-scenes look.
Beetlejuice has been kind of everywhere and anywhere you can imagine. Some of my favorite stops have been Boston, Los Angeles, Seattle, New Orleans was wonderful for live music.
For 3 years, Julia Sinai has worked on the touring version of the Broadway show Beetlejuice, the musical.
It's showtime.
But you won't find her on stage. The Calgary native and Toronto resident, when she's not on tour, is the associate musical director.
So we work with our orchestra of 10 musicians and also our company of 25 performers. And we play for rehearsals. I conduct the show several times a week. So we really just take care of all of the musical aspects of the production.
The road to the Edinburgh Theatre here in Toronto was actually by sea. One of her previous jobs was being a musical director on a cruise ship.
New York to Europe. We did a lot of months in Alaska and then all the way through the Panama Canal to the other side. So I really got to see so much of the world while working on ships, and working on Beetlejuice has afforded me the opportunity to see many, many parts of the U.S. So it's so great to be able to bring the show sort of back to my hometown, Toronto.
Sinai began playing the piano at age 5, and for those who've tried and given up, this advice.
If it's something that you love, just go for it, because there's so many different ways of looking at music. I think that's what makes a versatile musician, is when you can combine sort of all those genres and a love for everything.
Based on the 1998 hit musical horror film by Tim Burton, Beetlejuice, the musical, is the story of teenager Lydia Dietz, who meets 3 ghosts.
Hi, I'll be your guide.
Beetlejuice and a deceased couple, the former owners of her home. Over Overall, this comedy is a story about family, love, and embracing life.
It's really such a high-octane, super energetic show. Beetlejuice himself, depending on sort of the audience reaction, there is some room for improvisation as well. So you never quite know how the audience will react. You never know how Beetlejuice will respond.
Beetlejuice is on stage now at the CAA at Mirvish Theatre on Victoria Street until July 19th.
That beautiful sound!
Andrea Case, CTV News.
After the break, top golfers in town gearing up for the start of the Canadian Open. We catch up with the Masters champ himself, Rory McIlroy, who weighed in on the Leafs of all things from the green.
This disregard for human life is completely unacceptable.
Updating our top stories, Toronto police have made 10 arrests and laid more than 200 charges in connection with a series of violent incidents, including a mass shooting at a Scarborough pub back in March. Investigators say the case is linked to the wave of tow truck-related violence across the GTA. One suspect, identified as 20-year-old Daquan Joseph of Toronto, remains at large.
Area was targeted, that group of individuals was targeted, but I don't know specifically who in that group was targeted.
There's shock and grief in North York after a mass shooting last night in Lawrence Heights. Police say 6 victims were shot and rushed to hospital. A 31-year-old man who was in a wheelchair at the time did not survive. Investigators say they're searching for 3 armed suspects, and they believe there's no risk to public safety.
And there was shouting from the public gallery this afternoon at Queen's Park as demonstrators protested the passage of Bill 5. Now awaiting royal assent, it allows the province to designate special economic zones where provincial and municipal laws can be suspended. Critics say it's been rammed through without proper consultation with First Nations. The province says it's committed to its duty to consult.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar is up over 73 cents to close at 73.10. Western Canadian oil is up, closing at 53.34. And the TSX dropped 97 points, closing at 26,329.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
New figures show May was another slow month for home sales across the GTA. The Toronto Regional Real Estate Board says 4,400 homes exchanged hands, which marks a drop of more than 13% compared to May of last year. New listings, meantime, were up nearly 22,000 or 14% year over year. Treb says many home buyers are staying on the sidelines in the face of economic uncertainty and trade tensions with the U.S., and that's meant lower prices and more choice for those looking to buy now.
Some of the best golfers in the world are getting ready to tee off at the Canadian Open.
Many were out practicing their swings in Caledon today, and as CTV's John Musselman reports, there was even some hockey talk on the links.
The real tournament gets underway tomorrow, but today pros taking part in the Pro-Am event were able to get a feel for the layout at TPC Osprey Valley in Caledon, the home of this year's RBC Canadian Open.
Really thrilled to be here. New venue this year. I'm, have been excited for the other players and the fans to see this golf course. I think it's an amazing.
One of the game's biggest stars is here. Rory McIlroy is set to pursue his 3rd Canadian Open title. We also learned that McIlroy was given a Maple Leafs jersey this week, and he is hoping the Leafs can win the Stanley Cup one day. But since the Leafs are out, he will cheer on the Edmonton Oilers.
I was pulling for them hard, especially now that Keith is involved. I guess we all got to throw our support behind the Oilers at this point. But yeah, it's one day, I hope. Yeah, I was hoping that they were still going to be in, and maybe we would have been able to get to a game this week. But I hope so. I mean, I think it's only a matter of time.
Meanwhile, fans of the course today were expressing excitement. These young brothers from Stratford met McIlroy and even got his autograph.
I have Justin Rose on here. I have a lot of other guys on here whose names I forget.
Did you get Rory?
On my hat I have Rory. Very hard to see.
He wrote that today?
Yes.
Wow, what are you going to do with that hat?
I'm probably going to put it up in my room and wear it every day for the rest of my life.
Oh, it's so cool. It was cool to come out for the practice round and be close to them and get the high fives, and it was really, really neat.
The course has set up concession stands. There's also a merchandise tent with hats, shirts, shorts, everything golf. There is also a green where golf fans can try and replicate Nick Taylor's famous 72-foot putt to win the Canadian Open 2 years ago.
I just like watching all these great players and wishing I could do that.
The Canadian Open was established in 1904, making it the third oldest national open in the world. Play gets underway tomorrow morning. John Musselman, CTV News in Caledon.
It's finally here, hockey fans. The puck drops tonight on the Stanley Cup final.
And it is shaping up to be an epic rematch, a heavyweight tilt between the defending champions and last year's runner-up, the Edmonton Oilers.
This group obviously has played in one of those games. Came out on the wrong side, but just having gone through that, I think we're better for it.
To do the ultimate goal would be a massive accomplishment for this whole city, and something that we're going to do our very best to do.
The Oilers were on the ice today for a final tune-up before Game 1. Edmonton got some good news on the injury front with the return of Connor Brown, but fellow forward Zach Hyman will miss the series with a dislocated wrist. The Oilers lost in 7 games last year after roaring back from a 3-game deficit. Fans are confident of a better outcome this time, including the city's mayor, who has a bet with his counterpart in Sunrise, Florida.
When the Oilers take it, you'll be wearing orange and blue with pride.
Let's go Oilers! This year, Mayor Sohi, what we'll do is we'll send you yet another Panthers jersey for you to wear. And when we win, we'll send you a proclamation for you to read in the city of Edmonton declaring Florida Panthers Day and City of Sunrise Day.
The losing team's mayor will read a decree written by the victor in City Hall and declare a certain day be set aside to honor the championship winner in the losing city.
Now, if the Oilers win the Cup, Connor McDavid will likely have played a major role. And tonight, they'll have home ice advantage in 2 ways. Not only is the game in Edmonton, but ice scrapings from the rink in Newmarket, where he played as a teen, have been added to the ice at Rogers Place.
It's a very special experience, and I'm sure it'll be a special memory for a long time. But the real fun of it is just knowing how many kids in this town I'm already hearing from. They're saying, I skate on that ice. And that ice is going to Edmonton for the playoffs.
On the weekend, ice from the hometown rinks of 6 Oilers players was scraped into thermoses and shipped to Edmonton. Tonight, fans in Newmarket have gathered at a watch party as their local hero and the Oilers look to bring the Cup back to Canada for the first time since 1993. Just ahead, bridging the gap and bringing people together, we take a look at the largest gathering of academics in the country as they attempt to shape the future while honoring the past.
Tonight, urgent calls for a national wildfire fighting force.
We need to have boots on the ground. We need to have those resources predetermined.
What the plan to confront a crisis could look like and the roadblocks. Later on CTV National News.
June is National Indigenous Peoples Month, and all month long there are events, talks, and ceremonies taking place around the city.
Today, members of the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation visited George Brown College. CTV's Jessica Smith was there.
Creating connections. That's the basis for the 94th Annual Congress of Humanities and Social Sciences Conference, bringing people together for education, community, and culture.
Many other individuals who are just colleagues and community members who want to take a look at the role of higher education in society at large.
The conference is designed to be a melting pot, with special care paid to honor the Indigenous lands the school and city resides on.
With having such a significant conference here at George Brown College for the first time being held at a college, we wanted to make sure that there was a significant Indigenous presence throughout the conference as well.
Using song, dance, and storytelling, the Spring Creek dancers are participating throughout the conference, sharing the cultural tie from their ancestors to their current contemporary presence.
It's really important, and it's a really good opportunity. I'm really glad to be here.
This location is very, very important to my people.
Expected to bring in thousands of students, policymakers, and members of the public, the conference is designed to explore reframing the idea of togetherness.
It's nice to see like other generations, like coming out from different nations and seeing like the Indigenous history and also an Indigenous culture.
There are more educational events happening through to the end of the week, including Indigenous programming. For more information, you can visit georgebrown.ca. Jessica Smith, CTV News.
Unsettled weather is moving in. We're seeing some of that already.
Yeah, thunderstorm activity a little north and west of here. We're still watching a few showers now making their way into the GTA, but this is really the appetizer. The main event, if you will, is going to be overnight tonight and into tomorrow with more wet weather on the way. So here's our current satellite and radar. Just some light showers, as mentioned, around downtown Toronto. To recap, we had our first 30-degree day of the year so far in Toronto, but now it is 23 degrees. It's still quite warm in Niagara. Temperature-wise, overnight tonight, we drop to about 17, warmer than normal. And then tomorrow, it's going to be an unsettled start. So showers, risk of a thunderstorm. The day does improve as it goes on. It should be drier in the afternoon, hopefully with some sun. But what a change. A high of only 20 for tomorrow. And then seasonal with a mix of sun and cloud Friday and right through the weekend. Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Lindsay. That's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachinina at 11 tonight for CTV National News, followed by Zarada Almond with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a great night.